Oh, look at my coaster.
Nice. We
Guys,
live?
we're live.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, cheers. What are you drinking?
I am drinking Quiet Man Irish whiskey with a splash of water. Because
That is not beer.
I know I missed the memo. So, I don't drink a lot of beer, man. I drink some stouts and stuff, but if it's a normal drinking day, Irish whiskey is my normal drink.
What is a normal drinking day, Monday to Friday?
No, Monday through Sunday.
There you go. Yes, you can miss those two. So yeah, beer and gear. We want to talk about gear. And we need an excuse to drink while working. So here we are.
Sure, we need an excuse.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, shh.
So they can keep paying us for drinking while working.
Yes.
So we will talk about gear today. And I'm going to talk about, we're going to do a quick history lesson that will lead into the microphone we're talking about today. And I'm really excited about it. I've been using it all week. And I think, Wes, you have one in front of you as well. Boom, there it is. So let's go back in time to 1966. So you haven't, Shure came out with a microphone, right? The SM5. It's a broadcasting mic. It's also a huge microphone. I think it's about 10 inches. It's not easy to transport and take it places, especially for broadcasting purposes. And years later, Shure wanted to improve on that. And they said, why don't we find a way to combine the qualities of an SM5 with an SM57? And that's how the SM7 came to be. But it didn't... It's amazing for vocals, warm, rich vocals, a lot of low end response, but it didn't necessarily catch on as it did later on, a few years later, when this dude named Quincy was working on an album, and his engineer Bruce was basically given freedom to use any microphone. Right?
Was that Bruce Swindon?
Yeah, I think so. And I think Quincy was Quincy Jones, I believe. Yeah, I think so. I think they're going to go places, those guys. But point is, they're working this little album, and Bruce had complete freedom, right? I call him Bruce because we're cool like that.
Hey, you guys,
Yeah, we yeah, exactly. And you know what? He was able to have freedom to use any microphone. And this guy, an SM7 or the SM7, the original SM7, ended up in front of Michael, the guy that the artist that were recording. And the result was, boom, Thriller. It sold a few copies and it changed the music industry. Quick question, Wes, what's your favorite song in Thriller?
Man, that's hard.
I know what your least favorite is. That song shouldn't be there.
Yeah. So I really like the title track. Thriller is really awesome, because when that video came out, I was a kid, and it was this super long, super intricate, like it was a movie. And you've got Vincent Price on there, which makes it all the more cool. But you can't deny the Eddie Van Halen solo on Beat It. That's pretty ridiculous. So I've actually listened to that album a couple of times since Eddie Van Halen died. It kind of got me back listening to that, specifically on vinyl. I have an original press of that, and you can really hear how much went into the recording and the production, especially on that. Quincy Jones's production on that, as all his productions is amazing. But you could really, really hear it. And I think they recorded that album in like 3 weeks or something.
It was fairly quick.
Yeah, I swear it was 3 weeks, which is insane.
Yeah, and for vocal mics, all they used were an SM7, which I think it goes to show that the organic nature of the album and how quick it was done. Billie Jean is my favorite song in the album. I always go back to that one. Just go around and end up on that one.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is Beat It was a last minute addition. Like they had already recorded the whole album, and Quincy wanted some like a kind of rocking tune, and so they just threw together, beat it at the last minute, called Eddie Van Halen to come in. When they did after he cut the solo in two parts with like I think it was just like the first take of one, and then he did another like end part of it, and that was it. When they went back to listen to it, the speakers. This is a 100% true story. Bruce has said this many times. The speakers caught on fire while they were listening to the playback of it, and they were like, "Well, that means it's awesome. We should just keep that."
Of course.
Literally
plays
set the
guitar.
speakers on fire.
Plays rhythm guitar in that one, right? The main riff.
Yeah, that's from Toto.
Steve Lukather from Toto.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Porcaro plays drums too.
Well, Toto, that band was the backing band for that album, right?
They did in big part. I think they did Human Nature as well. Which after I learned that, I listened to Human Nature and I was like, oh yeah, it's a Toto song with Michael Jackson singing. Totally, it's right there. So awesome. But after that, of course, the microphone was elevated to being an icon and being an industry standard, right? Wes, you know, you've been doing this way longer than I have because you're way older than I am. Who else has used an SM7? Sorry, I had to take a jab here and there.
Way older. I would be more pissed off if that wasn't factual. So let's see. You know, James Hetfield used it on some Metallica stuff. I want to say that talking about the Van Halen thing, I want to say David Lee Roth used it on some stuff. I could be wrong on that. I'm trying to think of who else. It became in rock especially. It became kind of the go-to for anybody that kind of pushes too hard for a large diaphragm. I know that in my days in the studio, I would set up my SM7 and, you know, like a U87, and I would A/B between those and see which one, depending on the vocal style, which one I thought would go better. And maybe a U47, you know, depending on if I was going that route. But so many times the SM7, which was, you know, arguably one of the cheapest mics that I had in the studio in my mic cabinet, was the best thing for the vocal.
Yeah.
So what other guys have used it that
I think Anthony Kiedis I've read used it a lot through the years. I remember it's funny because as a kid watching videos of bands that I was into and heavy stuff, and now recording, I'm like, oh yeah, that's what they had in front of them. It was that big black can microphone. And then I personally use it for horns quite a bit. So I love putting it in front of a trombone or a trumpet, anything really loud. Baritone sax, I love it because it gets all of the low end, but it's not afraid of the SPL.
Are we going to talk about all the places that I've used? I actually personally own two SM7Bs, and I have used them on everything from snare. If there's enough space for me to get it in there, it sounds fantastic on snare. I've used it on guitar cabs a ton. I've used it on bass cabs a bunch. Horns, like you said, I've used it on horns a lot. Vocals. I mean, it's pretty much any place where I feel like a dynamic can be used, I will try it if I can fit it in there. And probably 7 times out of 10, it's the right microphone to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, through the years, it's changed a little bit, right? So it was SM7, then in the late 90s, I think SM7A, and that was more of like improving and adding humbucking. So it reduced noise for sure. And then a few years later, SM7B came to be, and that's just a bigger windscreen and things like that. But by itself, it's more or less been the same flavor, right? And one thing is being consistent throughout. Not only it's been used for music, but it's been used for broadcasting and podcasting as well. It seems like it's the era of the podcast, and you see them in front of everybody's face when they're doing a podcast. It's actually some famous podcasts that the logos, you see the SM7B right there. I was listening to somebody recently, and he was interviewing a musician as well. I forgot who was interviewing who. and they talk about audio and they talk about microphones. Yeah, I got this, man. They're amazing. You don't know this microphone SM7? It's talking to a musician. The musician's like, I'm not a recording guy. I'm just a musician. But I remember driving me and being like, really? Like, we need to sell more of them right now. So, but especially nowadays that it's easier to do a podcast, and it's also a need for a lot of people to be able to not only do podcasts but working from home, what you and I are doing right now.
Right. Yeah.
There are complexities. An SM7B, as forgiving as it is still a $400 microphone, and you need an audio interface. It tends to need a little bit more of gain, a little bit of boosting. So at some point, I don't know if this happened to you. I'm the default friend that gets called when somebody wants to start a podcast or something like that, and, and they go, "Well, this is my budget," and they realize, "Oh, I got $400, but I need the mic, I need this, I need all this stuff." Immediately they get scared, and the microphone tends to be the one thing that they end up going with something else, something more affordable. Enters 2020, and we have the MV7, which it is modeled and tuned after an SM7B, and also has USB and XLR.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about it. That's one of the things when I first saw the microphone. Like, first of all, obviously is anybody that's watching this can see from yours. You can't see mine because I purposely put mine in a way where you can't see it and it still sounds awesome. So, but looking at yours, it looks like the basic kind of shape of the 7B. But what was super cool for me was the fact that it has USB and XLR. So as somebody who's a little more of an audio guy, I have cool interfaces, I have things that can give plenty of gain for even, something like an SM7B. But the cool thing is you can run both USB and XLR at the same time. So that opens up a lot of possibilities, especially for like streamers and stuff. A lot of streamers will have two computers going on. So you got one that you're running your games on, and you're doing the audio capture, or you're doing video capture and audio possibly on that. And then you have another streaming computer or some combination of that. The cool thing is you can literally run the USB into one computer as the audio for that, and come out the XLR into an audio capture device into another computer, and have both of those going on at the same time, which is something that there's almost nothing else that does that. And that actually fills a niche for these, for a lot of the streaming guys that are on Twitch and that kind of thing. It's something that it was always kind of a clunky workaround for that, trying to get two audio interfaces. With a Mac, you have to do an aggregate device, and, trying to do multiple things. With this, you just plug it into two other computers, and into your two computers, and you're done. It's very easy. And it also allows for somebody who's just getting started. Like, they start off and they just buy the microphone and they go USB straight in, and it's just a done deal, right? But later on down the road, they want to add another person to their podcast, or, do more interview kind of thing. So they're like, okay, well, maybe I need to have an actual board so I can have multiple microphones. Well, this microphone doesn't become obsolete at that point. You use the XLR out to go into your interface, and you continue to use that. You get another one, and the cool thing is, one of the other cool things is the app that this uses allows you to actually control more than one microphone as well. So you can plug in multiple of the MV7s into one computer and actually have control over either one of them if you want to.
Yeah, let's talk about the app a little bit.
Wow, that was a great little segue there. I had no idea where I was going with that, but
it's like we're rehearsed, man. We've been rehearsing for 4 hours and drinking those 4 hours. So yeah, and you know what? As you're talking, I'm like, yeah, this is perfect, because you and I right now USB. But if we ever are allowed to be in the same room and do a bigger and gear together, we'll probably go into a mixer, and just, if we have more than you and I, and just be able to control. However, you can do up to two microphones on the app right now. Plug them in. So if you were to have a situation where you need two microphones, you don't need to have a mixer either, because you can just plug in two microphones. By the way, I had a conversation with Shure, where at the moment MV88 Plus and MV7 are the two microphones compatible with the app. So,
Okay.
So you're not limited to two MV7s. You could plug in an MV88 Plus as well.
Oh, that's
To
cool.
it if you wanted to. Yeah. Now, say I don't know what I'm doing, which you say that on a
Say that
daily
all the
basis to
time.
me. Yeah, it's no different than any other day. I set myself up for that one. And or you just want ease, man. You can go into auto level, right? And you can basically say how far are you from the microphone. In my case, I'm near, right? If I wanted to be sitting away from the microphone, I can go ahead and select far, right? And then what kind of tone I want. Do I want it to be dark? Do I want it to be natural or go brighter? I personally have a nasally, annoying voice to myself, so I tend to go dark, right? Now, Wes will tell us about the next page because the guy is a pro. He doesn't need presets. He doesn't believe in presets. And he likes to be able to control a little bit more. And
Right.
you are.
Yeah. So, but the cool thing is, like, before we start messing with this, you'll notice the first thing is preset. So you can actually set up your own presets, which is something that I'm a very big fan of, is setting up my own thing and then saving that as a preset so I can just recall that and I don't have to mess around with it. But, being able to set your gain, the next thing, obviously that's exactly what it sounds like, setting the gain on the microphone. The next thing is the monitor mix. And what's cool about that is, I don't know if you noticed when Felix was showing the back of it, but there's also actually a 3.5 jack on the back of it that you can monitor off of. You can use the MV7 as a complete audio interface, so input and output. This is where you can set up that monitor mix and how much is coming from the headphone out on that. Then right below that is the EQ. You've got flat, you've got a little bit bass roll off, and then you've got a presence peak. And then you have kind of both of those together, which actually to my ear sounds a little bit more like what a processed SM7B sounds like. Because, SM7B on its own sounds great, but most of the time you're going to have some kind of audio processing on there. So that EQ setting right there actually sounds a lot more like what a processed SM7B sounds to my ear. Then you got a limiter just to keep you from clipping, and a compressor that's pretty simple to use. Normally, like if you were doing a podcast, you probably set that limiter on and maybe do a little bit of light compression for the recording, just to make sure that you get nice levels, but you don't clip it out. And then in post-processing, go through and do any other real compression that you need or whatever. That would just kind of as a safety measure. But, what's funny is you say I don't like the presets, but I usually just set it to automatic. Like this one right here is set to automatic and set to far because it's just easier that way and it sounds good,
Wes, I that was something completely uninformed. Just by knowing you, I know you like things the harder ways.
Yeah.
So I just assumed you were looking at presets and just going like a cat seeing another cat. Like,
it's funny. I like presets if they sound good. My problem with presets is most of the time they don't. So
yeah, exactly.
That's what's great about this one. I could just set it to automatic, and said, "Hey, I'm far away from the microphone," and it sounds good. So first time I did that, I was like, "Oh, I'm doing that all the time because it's easy."
Yeah, exactly. Now I wouldn't discount this microphone for singing either. 132 dB SPL. So make sure proper mic technique will apply. One thing that you're used to, that singers are used to on SM7 is just getting right in front of it, right?
Yeah.
Bear something in mind. When you remove the windscreen, it's right there. So windscreen capsule right there. The SM7B does not have that because if you remove the windscreen, the capsule, it's not here. It's all the way here.
Right.
So bear that in mind. If you're an SM7 singer and you get this and you scream on it and immediately goes, "Pah!" Understand that you got to work on it a little bit. So
get a little bit away from it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Man, like I said, Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say the SM7B. That's something that they did that on purpose for the broadcast guys, so they can put their mouth right on it and be right in front of it. And they don't have to do mic technique. That's that always seemed like a thing to me that they did it on purpose because broadcasters don't really. I mean, they don't have to know mic technique. And with that microphone, all you have to do is put it right in front of your mouth, and you're there, and they're actually the right distance away from the capsule.
Gross.
Yes.
That should be the last thing we talk about today.
But how bad mic technique that broadcasters have. And on that note,
I'd like to see the comments. I'm a broadcaster, man.
I know. I'm going to get ripped apart for that. But we could talk about how terrible a technique singers in rock bands have. We could go there if we wanted to.
I think in general,
Mm-hmm.
man, I love hip hop. Holding a microphone the right way does not look as cool as holding the microphone the wrong way. I have to say that.
Yes, holding the microphone in a way that turns it into an omnidirectional capsule looks way cooler, but sounds terrible.
100%. 100%. It looks cool.
Yep, that's
all I gotta say.
Of people holding the microphone the wrong way. I could go off on that for a long time, but some people have come up with ingenious ways to look cool and hold the microphone properly. Snoop Dogg comes to mind. His microphone, if you haven't seen it, he has a guard across here that says Snoop and is all blinged out. It's really the only way he can hold the microphone. It's is that way.
He
can't
hold
the capsule. So by doing it that way, his vocals sound amazing. I've worked with him a couple of times live, and he sounds great. And
awesome.
It looks awesome. And like there's some cool ways to get good microphone technique. But yeah, I'm always amazed at how singers don't these days. It feels like I'm going to put on my old man get off my lawn thing, but singers don't really work. A lot of them don't work on having good microphone technique. The thing that always cracked me up was you hear these stories about like Sinatra in the studio. They didn't have headphones or monitors or anything, so he had to learn how to work the microphone, get closer and further away, and he had a full orchestra in the same room with him. And apparently, my understanding is that that's kind of how they came up with, in Universal Studios, I think, the meters that they have in the live tracking room. So they would patch that directly into his vocal mic, and as he got closer onto the microphone, that meter would go up, and he would just watch that meter and ride that meter, so he was getting the right level on it, which is genius. And God, that's got to be hard to do.
Yeah.
So it's it used to be a lot more mic technique that you had to do, or you wouldn't be able to function in this business. But we have tools that make it a lot easier to get your art across, which is a good thing at the end of the day.
Exactly. Good, man. It's a Friday. I don't want to hold you up from drinking without strangers looking at you.
Afternoon. Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of this evening, the pre-Halloween thing. So
good. Well, it's been a pleasure. Beer and gear. We should do this more often, man. We should do one next month.
Yeah. Let's bring a guest. Like the last Friday of next month and talk about something else.
There you go. Thank you to our 3 listeners, or whatever we have. It's probably our family members and our bosses. Hi.
Hi.
All right, man. Nice talking to you, brother.
All right, man. Take care.
Oh, check out the MV7.
Oh, yeah.
You should, for real. Bye.
Bye.